Hey everybody, what's up? This is Rich from the Rich and Turbo Heavy Half Hour, and this is our latest episode. You can find me on X at Fuzz Doom Rip, all the other socials at Rich.Piva, doing reviews from Musapedia of Metal and as a Doom Charts contributor. I'm very excited to have Sean and Anthony from New York's River Cult on the show. Guys, how you doing today?
Doing good. Thank you so much for having us.
Excellent.
Doing good as well. Thanks again.
Thank you guys for joining. Sean, guitar, vocals. Anthony plays bass. You have a new drummer from the last record, which I'm going to ask you a couple questions about because he comes from a band that I've dug for a really long time too. So I have some questions about that. But you guys put out a new record called High Anxiety on November 7th, just a couple of days ago. It's killer. Let's talk about it. What can you guys tell us about the new record?
So it's been a while. It's been 5 years. We had Tav, our original founding drummer, move away to First Maine, where we kind of made it work, but weren't really like writing and stuff because he was just kind of coming down if we played shows. He moved to Tennessee, needed a new drummer. Took a while. Found Eli, who I've known for years, but just kind of reconnected, and kind of took it from there. And when he joined the band, he learned the old songs, but we didn't really like give him much direction on like you've got to sound like the old drummer sort of thing. And his influence sort of just like took us into a slight direction change while sort of retaining our roots. And that wasn't just Eli; it was sort of like an intentional thing for a few other reasons with Anthony and I, but. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's pretty much it.
How about it, Anthony? What about you having a new kind of partner in the rhythm section and how that all worked out for the new record?
Yeah, I think one of the main things, and I'm sure Sean feels the same way, is that I felt like we were taking everything up to like a new level. And I think that with Eli's skill set and also wanting to like write some new music, we were definitely looking into like, hey, I want to like write like more intricate style riffs and just really dig in on some of this stuff, especially since we had a good amount of time to do this as well. Not just learning old songs, but like, pretty much learning to vibe with a new person and creating like all this new music as well. So for me, it was just like, okay, now it's time to like really turn it up. So it was a nice challenge, and it was cool to just try something new, I would think as well. When Eli brought it to the table, we were like, okay, this is not super drastic of a change, but this is different than what we have been working with. So it was a nice challenge to really just, expand on our skill sets and really just see what we can create together.
Yeah, I think that it was a good, I mean, for me personally too, with this album, I wanted to focus more on lyrics. I mean, I'm sure you notice I sing way more on it. There's no instrumental track. And I think Eli is more like Todd was an amazing drummer, still is, but he was a little more like loose kind of, which I love. But with Eli, he was like just like a little more direct. And I think that fit with what I was thinking with the album of like, I want to have, our first track's still pretty sprawling, like our old style, but there's some more concise tracks on there. And, I maybe made the decision to like cut down parts instead of like, I love a never ending psychedelic like thing, but with this, it was sort of just like, all right, like, let's like, I don't know. I was really directly influenced by like Caius, for example, which I always have been, but specifically with like the lyrics and the vocals and like bringing more of like a aggressive vocal style. And cause that's something like I really like in bands. And I was like, you know what, I want to like add that more to River Cult and kind of like grab the audience more with the vocals. And I think that dovetailed nicely with his drumming and kind of all worked well together.
Yeah, I was going to mention an interview that I saw with you, that I read with you guys, where you mentioned Caius and Pentagram as kind of a reference point, and you have a 3-minute song that sounds like Fu Manchu, kind of, in my opinion. Like I feel like, and I'm like, wow, what? I kind of had to take a little bit of a double take, and I'm like, there's like a single on this record, which was very cool. was that a different kind of experience writing? Fast Crash. Was that like intentional, or did it just kind of come out like I'm going to write a 3 minute more straight ahead rock song than I have in a long time?
It was actually kind of intentional. We were like done, and I was like, "Yeah, we got 6 songs, it's fine." And Eli was like, "No, we should maybe." He was like, "We need like 3 more," and I was like, "I don't know about that." Um, and then so I wrote that like that first initial riff and came in with it, and yeah, I was trying to sort of, which is something I actually like. It was the first time I've ever done this. Of like, I usually kind of wait till the riff comes to me and whatever. But I like sat down and I was like, what kind of like, you know, straight up rock riff can I come up with, and let's just write like a quick banger, you know. And then I don't know, it took me a bit to think of what to like come up with to sing about, but I was like, I don't know what sucks, like commuting to work in New York City. Let me write a song about that.
There you go. Yeah.
It was also interesting too because we when that song came about, we were already like very deep in writing for this album and preparing. So as soon as this idea came to the table, there was no like, oh man, like we're gonna have to like really sit with this one. It kind of happened very quickly since we were like in the zone. So it's like as soon as we kind of learned everything, we were like, damn, we have this song almost pretty much good to go after like 2 practices. And I think it just played a really good part with everything else we had been doing. So it was like, sure, let's work on this new song very close to recording, but it worked out. And yeah, it being really short, that surprised us as well.
It's like you're paranoid, right? It's like it's.
I was actually like debating saying that or not to be too like comparing us to Black Sabbath, but it does remind me of that because I believe they were like in the studio and they
Yeah.
realized they needed one more track, and Tony and we just kind of like came up with it. So it wasn't like quite in the studio, but
Yeah,
by our
yeah,
standards, it was a last minute thing, kind
yeah,
of.
and a shorter and kind of like a blast, which like just a quick blast, which you weren't getting a lot on those records because those are obviously very big and sprawling. Eli comes from, and I guess it depends on your point of view, but Nam, however you want to say it. I love that band. I've never heard actually
Same,
anyone say that word, the band, out loud. So I always guess at
I always
which
said
one.
Nam.
Okay, it probably is that. There's just some early TP, not early, but like the early 2010s TP records, like those records and Quest for Fire and Weird Owl. There were some really great kind of cool psych things going on then. So that must have been pretty cool to have a guy from that because it, like you said, where you guys are a little bit more sprawling. I see now I'm like mentioned like in like a almost like a doomy stoner krautrock thing, which is more of your direct kind of, not necessarily. I don't want to use, I don't mean all over the place in a bad way, but like just more
Right,
of
right.
a kind of a direct rhythm where you would get different. Did it take a little while to get used to that kind of style, or did it take a little while for him to get used to kind of the more jammy ways that maybe you were playing before?
Um, I mean, he came in like he learned a few songs, on his own just from listening, and so getting like we like started with him learning our older songs, so we had that core to start with, and that wasn't difficult. I mean, he's a great drummer and just kind of like nailed it pretty quickly, and then needed to refine it, and then as far as the songwriting from there on, I mean, we do our songwriting very organically. So it kind of happened pretty naturally because it's like I'll come in with something or Anthony will come in with something and we want, some direction from the drummer. And like Eli was good with like, oh, I think this should go here, this should go there, whatever. And I don't know, I think we all just kind of adapted to each other. And like parts where it was like, oh, maybe we can like do this and it didn't work. We just threw it out and moved on. And it's just like an organic kind of thing where we're just throwing things off of each other. And it wasn't super difficult to make that transition. And it was like maybe something we'd do with Tav that wouldn't work with Eli. We just didn't do it.
Yeah, and I think another great thing too is that Eli is on the same level as far as like influences and what he listens to. So that was very like that was nice too, because it was like we all just spoke the same language. If there was a drum part that I couldn't really articulate, like I don't play the drums really, I could just be like, well, how about if you did like a Dale Crover Melvin's kind of thing here? And Eli just kind of knew when we would say stuff like that. So it was just nice having somebody that we didn't really have to like educate, I would say, like on some of our influences. It was just like a mutual understanding of like how we wanted to tackle like each song, and just very easy to work with as far as communication goes too. It was a good experience getting this album ready.
Cool. Yeah. One of the things I think I really dig about your band is that I love the psychedelic stuff, but I also love how kind of, and this might be the New York side of you guys, just kind of a little bit of a darkness and a dinginess to what you're writing. You know what I mean? Like there's like this reality, this realness. I grew up in New York, but I grew up on Long Island, so I would only venture into the city there you go. Okay, so yeah, venture into the city every now and then for a show, and then take the train back to beautiful Nassau County. But to me, I feel like there's a city vibe for what you guys are writing, and a song like, for example, Smoke Break. I just kind of hear a little bit of that going on, and just and that is the griminess is a major compliment, obviously. Are there other bands maybe from the New York scene that you have that have been influences on the way that you play and write? Maybe not from like the psych side or something like that, but just being New Yorkers and other bands that you've encountered maybe coming up in the scene, or as your musical tastes have evolved.
Yeah, go ahead, Sean. I'll go after you.
No, go ahead, Anthony.
You want me to go? Okay, so like for me, growing up on Long Island, I grew up during like the early 2000s, going to like hardcore shows, not only throughout Long Island but in the city, Nassau County as well. So I was very lucky to be able to encounter like some of these bands along my way. And if you're talking from New York, I was really into Most Precious Blood. I really loved how these bands had these metal influences as well, and could also have like these really great old school hardcore sound, like these parts. And I was just like, wow, I really like how there's also like a metal side to it too, because I was definitely gravitating towards that like heavier sound. And then on the psychedelic side, I wouldn't call them a psychedelic band, but we had the band On the Might of Princess, and they were like a Revelation Records band, and I was always just so drawn into that sound. And they almost had like kind of that shoegazy vibe to them too, in those psychedelic soundscapes that they would make. And it was like the first time I was like, oh wow, like a delay pedal is really awesome on some of these parts, like, and it just kind of makes you expand like what you sort of like dig deeper into like, oh man, I want to look up some other bands. And then you find yourself like leaving Long Island, leaving your little pocket, your little neighborhood, and being like, wow, there's a whole other world out there of music, and being inspired by stuff. So I definitely thank the scene for giving me like the building blocks to kind of like discover more. And yeah, there was a lot going on in New York, but I have to say a lot of it for me was just hardcore punk and like early emo, and everything was distorted, dirty, and that's still what I dig to this day, and especially when I'm playing music.
Love it, Sharon. You're gonna have to give me 2 minutes on this to have a Long Island bond for a second. So I probably got about 10 years on you. I grew up in the early 90s on Long Island, and I went to high school. Do you know the band Vision of Disorder? Those guys?
Yes.
I went to high school with those guys, with a couple of those guys. So that scene, and like you mentioned, kind of a metalcore. Like before metalcore was something like you don't really necessarily want to listen to these days. It was like hardcore roots, but like they understood metal. And even like a band like where Sick of It All went when they signed to their major and became like what was on Scratch the Surface. But I was really into like your Biohazards and your Marauders and your Life of Agonies, like bands like that. But I had a lot of buddies who were into like Mind Over Matter and then Glassjaw, and then start moving towards things like Taking Back Sunday and the emo Long Island stuff. So yeah, that's it's very interesting. It was I was there pretty early, just because I went to Malibu nightclub for goth nights on Thursday nights. That was about as extensive as a scene as you got where I was growing up until all these, we had a battle of the bands. And next thing you know, there's Vision of Disorder playing Doors covers, which was a revelation for this kid from Merrick on Long Island. So, but yeah, same thing, hardcore stuff. And once you find one Revelation band that you like, then the whole world opens up. Like Into Another became like my favorite band in college, and like the post hardcore stuff is really where I started to resonate from. And it's funny how maybe, I don't know, I talk a lot of stoner doom psych bands on the show, and 70% come from like a hardcore punk background. Like that's what they were doing. One of my new favorite bands is a band called Florist out of Tampa. Two just hardcore guys who decided, I just want to play Hawkwind now, and that's kind of what they did. And it's just great. Like you can hear both of those things in there, but the, the amount of people who grew up on kind of the hardcore, post-hardcore stuff, even outside of New York, is pretty amazing. So thank you for that.
Yeah, totally. And like to kind of also just expand too, and Sean's answer will be interesting as well. It's like there is so many things happening in so many other states that it's really awesome to kind of hear. And I actually, after college, I lived in Miami for a while. And for me, I started to get a taste of what was going on down there. And so I was like, you have your Torch, Capsule, and you have these other bands. And I'm like, man, something's in the water, because every band that I'm listening to is either tuned down to A or just playing sludge. And I was just like, my mind was blown when I was there, because I was like, I need to get into this music scene, and I'm coming from somewhere else. So like with that thought, I'll let Sean expand from like where he's from and, influences from the Jersey area.
But Anthony, you are such a Long Islander like me. Like '98, I moved to friggin' Florida. I was in South Florida I graduated from college in Buffalo, moved to South Florida. A little bit early, but I was down there. But Torch, man, I never got to see them. I missed it. Like in that first incarnation right before they broke up. But I just remember like standing in lines at shows with just people like, oh, I wish Torch was still around. I wish Torch was still a thing. And now they are again. So we'll see what happens. Sorry, Sean, we just totally geeked out on Long Island hardcore and stuff. So.
It's funny. Before I go into the question, I saw Torch, like around when I got into Boris, which was a huge influence in the band. They were touring with Torch, and I think it was like the original lineup with the two guitar players. I think they toured with them a few times. I'm pretty sure I've seen them a few times. I see Boris every time they come to town. But yeah, anyway, I'm from North Jersey, so not super far. And I'm like a little younger than Anthony. And growing up, I mean, the thing that was popular was emo in North Jersey. And so I was super into like emo and screamo and stuff. A lot of it that I would not listen to now, but some of it that I still find a little interesting. On the Mighty Princess being one of them. And it's interesting you mentioned them, because when I was trying put an ad up for the band, one of the first people I played with was the bass player of On the Mighty Princess, but it just kind of like didn't work out. But he's a really cool dude. But anyway, I was listening to stuff like that, and then once I moved to the city in like 2009, the bands from New York that really kind of influenced where I'm at now, Psychic Paramount. They're a really awesome band that sort of like took a break and then reformed when I was like starting to go to psychedelic shows and stuff. I saw them play at the Stone in like 2008 or 7, which is a small venue owned by John Zorn. And my friend just said, hey, come to the show. And I smoked a joint of hash and weed outside and was like extremely stoned, and went in and was sitting right in the front, and they just like blew me away. And I was like still kind of finding myself with what sort of music I wanted to like play in a band. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. And then from there I got into like Oneida, White Hills used to play all the time back then. I'm friendly with those guys. And La Otracina, friendly with those guys too. And Nam. I mean, I used to go see Nam a lot. That was like right when my first psychedelic band I was in when I was in my early 20s. I was like going to those kind of shows all the time. Psychic Ills was another one. Death by Audio was a venue in Williamsburg. I would go there all the time. Monster Island Basement. there was just like a ton of cool shows happening in Williamsburg back then.
That's very cool, and it's amazing. Like I think that's a pretty underrated scene for that time and those psych bands because you don't necessarily hear a lot of those band names called out. I mentioned those early TP band, well, not early again, but like those early 2010 TP bands ish, because I think they're super underrated. C. Ross just put out almost like a Dead Meadow acoustic record. He was the guy from Quest for Fire and Common Control, and it's amazing. It's like this like acoustic psych stuff, but like I didn't know that he was even doing stuff, and I just happened to see on Instagram Ecodelics, which is a great label who put that stuff out. But I think there's a lot of stuff that hasn't really been investigated by some of these people who love the stuff that we listen to that people need to go check out, like those bands. Yeah,
For sure. Yeah, and there's less of that music happening in New York right now. I
yeah,
mean, and also sort of like, I mean, by the time River Cult started playing in 2015, it was pretty massively slowed down. I mean, it was underground then, but and then once we were kind of starting a bunch of like we used to play the Acheron, which was a place in Brooklyn that had a ton of awesome heavy shows, and that closed down. And I don't know, the scene is like quite different now, and all that Williamsburg stuff is like ancient history. There's not a lot of heavy psych or any of that stuff really like happening in Brooklyn like
it's a
right now,
shame.
or in New York. Yeah.
I had Cloud Stay Satanic on the show. Those I'm sure you see those guys around or
Yeah,
they're
we've played with them before.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's just off the top of my head the one that I kind of gravitate to because I love that stuff. Also, I'm a vinyl nerd, so they scratch that vinyl nerd itch a lot too with
Totally.
some of the cool stuff that they put out. So. Um, Awesome. I want to ask about Smoke Break, that track, if you don't mind,
Sure.
and
Sure.
specifically lyrically, where you were coming from with that, and it's a little bit of a different kind of delivery from you, if I think if I'm listening to that and comparing it to some other stuff. So tell us a little bit about that one because that's another one that kind of jumps out at me.
Yeah, it definitely is different lyrically. It's funny. That was when the way that I write lyrics is I like to like we just have a Zoom recorder, which they've gotten quite good these days actually. And we just run it in the practice space, and once we get a good take of a song, the lyrics always come much later, or no, not necessarily much later. Sometimes months or like half a year later, right, Anthony? You're always like,
Yeah.
where are the lyrics get? It takes a while sometimes. I gotta, I can't force it. But anyway, with that one, I definitely struggled with it. Let me finish what I was saying. The process. So we record the demo just instrumental, and then I like to kind of like write the lyrics, not playing guitar, because I feel like when I'm playing, it sort of like makes me just like sing to the riff, and I want to like get away from it, come up with ideas. And so I have the demo, and I just set my computer up and sing over it and see what sticks or whatever. And that one took a while, and I wasn't quite sure what I was gonna do over it. And I feel like I kind of went out on a limb on it. Like it's a little more like emotionally bare, which again, it's something I like in music. So I thought it was cool. And I don't know, it's like the lyrics are a little vague. I can't necessarily pin down what it's about, but it's just about feeling angst and like unsettled in life, not necessarily all the time, but just everybody has those feelings, and just kind of like feeling lost and anxious and not knowing where you're going. And just kind of like I try to tap into like a raw emotional expression of that.
Very cool. Again, I think I just kind of go back to that rawness that I hear, that almost cityness that I hear in what you guys do. Anthony, have you ever gone back to Sean and been like, this lyric is crazy, or this? No, never. Did you ever think it, or did you just not tell him, or did you know?
Well, like honestly, like the lyrics always come towards the end, like Sean was saying. So this time around, like we were pretty close to the wire. Like we were down to the wire. We were about to record, and Sean was just like, "Let me get these ready." So some stuff we didn't hear actually till the studio, and was just pleasantly surprised. Like, and I think from since we started this band, like, you know, Sean always has this creative freedom to figure out the lyrics. And I mean, if it's something that really doesn't work, we would say something. And it's never really been that way. I think maybe in our first record, we cut a lyric part that was just like not working. Like we tried to put like effects on it, and it was just like, okay, well, I don't think we really need that at this part. And it might have even just been like a little yell or something like that. But otherwise, yeah, I let Sean do his thing. That's his zone, and whatever comes out comes out. And like I said, we've never been disappointed with it.
Yeah,
Love
I
it.
mean it's funny, and like this, like I said, this record, I was like really trying to focus on lyrics and write more meaningful and better lyrics. And that's like on the previous albums, I had some stuff I really like, not to shit on it or anything, but it's a weird thing. It's like I'm a very confident, pretty confident guitar player, at least within my band, and like I could bring anything to the table there, but it is interesting with the lyrics, and it's not something I'm super used to. You know, I'm sure singers who've been singers for decades are just used to it, but you know, it's putting yourself out there, and like I see myself as a guitar player first, and so when I'm like singing, it's like more of a vulnerability, you know. So it was kind of I don't know. I was like a little like I remember the first time I demoed the songs. Took a few beers to get through them, and I like sent them to the guys, and they didn't respond for like a day or two because they were like busy or whatever. But the whole time I'm just like, oh my god, like I can't sing, I can't, like this is gonna suck. And then they're like, this is awesome, you know. So
You know, it's funny. I think that vulnerability, in a way, kind of comes through on the record because it's real. Like you can like the realness of what you have on here. And again, I'm kind of pulled towards that kind of music, which is why when I heard this record, I reached out to you guys pretty quickly to ask you to be on. So yeah, there's something to that. And I was gonna just kind of ask, I don't know, do you enjoy the singing part? Like, because I know you mentioned you think of yourself first as a guitar player, and you, I think some of the projects before are a little more instrumental. So, do you like that part of the whole thing?
it's funny because it is kind of like a struggle, and like part of me wishes I could just like rock the fuck out during the riff and like not have to sing, you know. But I do. It's more of like forcing myself into it and doing it. And I feel like I just kind of started singing while playing because like I wanted the band, or my previous band is where I started, to be a three-piece and like not have to find a singer kind of thing. But I actually do really love it, and especially when I think that I nail the lyrics, it's so satisfying to like fucking scream and sing your heart out and like play super loud, and like, you know, the volume's hitting you and you're just like yelling, and like the lyrics mean something to you. And I mean, I do love it. It's cathartic, you know.
Very cool. And speaking of, you mentioned effects and things like that. This you want different approach in recording this record, correct? There was a little bit more. I was reading the interview. I think it was in Psychedelic
Psychedelic
Baby.
Baby.
Yeah, I was reading a little bit about that. So a little bit of a different approach on the recording and mixing of this one, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we I mean, we kind of shelled out for a nicer studio. We love the studio Seaside Lounge where we recorded our last two records. Worked with Charles Burst, who, you know, he's amazing. But like that was always more of like I feel like when I first started playing music, I always wanted to do this just like, you know, like the first record I did, I even did the vocals live. And it took me like a while to want to like move away from that. And in this one, we still did basic tracking live, which is something I really strongly agree on. I don't like tracking and using click clack or anything like that. But we were like more open to letting Jeff Berner, the engineer who I've known for years but never worked with the band, did a solo thing with him years ago. But anyway, he suggested using different amps at once, like, you know, whatever, like, and it's still pretty bare bones, but like did more overdubs. He added some effects on vocals, and like we kind of like let him mix it, obviously giving feedback and stuff. But yeah, I mean that's I don't know if you want to add to that, Anthony, but that's kind of like what we sort of did differently with this one.
Yeah, I would just say like we were very pushed to, you know, just give our like 110% for this. It was a nicer studio. really top-notch equipment everywhere. We knew that we were in this studio and we got to do something great, and we believed in the music. Jeff understands everything that we were trying to do as well, and only just wanted to make it better. I had a really crazy idea on Mind the Teeth, and Jeff actually contributed the organ on that part, which was just something where we were like, this is our guy to do it. He's not only the engineer, but he's having some producer credits also. But it was just for us, like, just being in such a nice environment encouraged, like I said, 110% creativity. So we were really pushed to give it like our all.
Very cool, and you can hear
Also
it
just-
too. Yeah,
I have an anecdote about the Jeff doing the organ part. It was funny because it was the third day, and that's another thing I touched on in that interview. Where I'll just say we really like to like bang out a record. Like sometimes bands will go in and then they'll like come back, and it's like months or years or whatever. We like to just be well rehearsed, and we've always done it in 3 days basically. The mixing, later, but anyway, on the third day we're doing the overdubs and stuff, and Anthony was like describing to Jeff his like idea. And we like went out and like got stoned and like came in and we are like super stoned, and he like cranked it up and just like went to town on the organ. And we were just like,
there it is.
like, it was like awesome.
I was like, by the time I was done describing it, it was like already happened. I'm like, what if we did like something like Black Mountain, here, like, just something really cool. And then he's like, how about this? And then it's just recorded. And they're like, I don't even think it doesn't need a second take. But he was able to, transcribe that stuff that was in our heads, which was awesome. It was just like ideas were limitless. Whatever we threw at him, he was like, let me see if I can make that happen.
Very cool. Yeah, I had the Jersey band Solace on the show, and I was talking about their album The Brink. And I'm like, I just love how much you put organ in there. And they're like, yeah, the singer fights us, the producers fight us, and then we just hear it and we're like, this is what they do. They just put their hands down. They go, this is where we want this, and then they know where to put it. So, yeah, I love that. And you add organ for me and on just about anything, and that it like draws me in. So, love that. So, what's next for you guys? The album came out a couple days ago. Are you guys playing? You guys doing live shows, or what does that look like for what's next for this record and for the band?
So we've got a few things going on now, and it's a little bit bad timing with the record coming out. So we're taking like a little bit of a break with shows, but in the new year we hope to be back in action with that. And that's pretty much the plan. We're just kind of retooling, and come the new year, you should see some shows, and we'll be out there.
Sweet.
But right now we're just trying to promote the record. I mean, we want people to listen to it. That's kind of our goal right now.
Yeah, and I think also like having 3 albums out now too, in the new year, we're looking to do shows where we maybe have a set that plays songs from each album this time around, like really just plan out, like a master set list and go for it.
Yeah, you have to put Fast Crash in now, because otherwise you just play 3 songs, one from each album, and you're at 30 minutes already. So you need to make sure you throw that one in there to yeah,
of course.
Exactly. So the last question I have just is about kind of, you put out the first 2 records on Sony Records, correct? Before, and you're doing this one yourself? This is a self-release? How has that experience been compared to working with a label? I'm sure those guys were great, but like, is it do you like having a little bit more control doing it yourself, or was it good to have kind of a partner there, or a little bit of both?
I mean, a little bit of both. So Sony isn't putting music out anymore.
Yeah.
I was, we emailed them about it, and Holger, the founder, he loves the album. He ordered a few of them, and he's super supportive. But he's been doing it for 30 years, and he's just sort of hanging it up. And we shopped it around. I mean, a label like Sony is perfect for us because we're not like a tour for 3 months kind of band. We need a label that just kind of wants to like put it out because they love our music, and that's like what Sony was. And they were great. Like they let us do, I mean, I remember when we did our first record, they sent us the templates, and I was like, you sent us gatefold templates. We're not allowed to do that, right? And they're like, nah, you can do a gatefold, you can do color splatter, you can do like whatever you, color splatter, vinyl, you can do whatever you want. And we were like, whoa, So they were awesome for that. But this time around, it was like a little bit of a bummer that we couldn't find a label. But then, like, the more people I talked to about it, and like people that got signed that I know to labels that were like a step above it, like hearing like the details about it, it's like not all it's cracked up to be. And like, long story short, it was like a little bit of a bummer at first, but I'm actually like happy that we self-released it. And another thing, Nasoni was in Germany. It's much more convenient to have them all here.
Yeah.
We do have European fans, but the bulk is still in the US, and they would give us 50 for our deal, and then we'd be sold out of them quite quickly, and then like have no records, and people would be like, a record you gotta ship from Germany is $35 shipping and whatever. And having them here and being able to make my own decisions on sell them to this person, give them to whatever. So like, obviously it's always great to have someone backing you and paying for stuff, but I've self-released in the past for my previous band. We use a company, A to Z Media, and they do it all, and it's pretty easy, and it's a limited run of 250, so it's not too many, and should make the money back. And like, yeah, we're pretty happy to self-release it. It like honestly makes, even when I reached out to Nasoni, they were like, you should just self-release it, it makes more sense. And I was like, okay. I don't know, a band at like our level, and it really kind of is the way to go.
Yeah it's there are definitely some good labels, and I have good relationships with a lot of them. There are a couple of labels that are doing some weird things right now with bands that are, it's almost a weird pay to play type situation that I'm hearing about with some of these, where it's
which we actually got an offer like that, and I was like shocked by it. It seemed like kind of, I don't even remember the label at this point. It was a European label, and they like seemed kind of cool, and then it was like, wait, we have to pay how much?
Yeah.
Like, why would I do that? It was like an amount that was like half of like self-releasing it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I'll ask you after I turn this off who it was, because there was a few of those bands that have gone to another label that I know is a reputable one and does well, does right by their artists. So it's interesting. But I mean, what I'm seeing from a content standpoint and how the record sounds and everything, I don't think you guys lost anything except maybe your time doing some of the work that maybe a label would do. So,
Right, yeah.
But if you can somehow figure out if in the basement somewhere they've got some copies of your debut record laying around anywhere, I'd rather pay you than pay the guy on Discogs who has one for $40 right now. So
right, no, I hear you. We unfortunately don't. I think you can still buy it on the Nasoni website, but then it's like
I could fly to Germany to go pick it up for as much as the shipping is. So. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But guys, this is amazing. I absolutely love the record. For those of you guys who don't know River Cult, the new record's called High Anxiety. You can go grab it on Bandcamp right now, as well as their last record, some cassettes from their first EP, I believe, and some other cool stuff. Before I let you go, I do need to ask you, I know you've probably been asked a million times about the record cover for your last record, but I'm going to ask about the record cover for this record. Was this just walking down the street on the way to get a cab and you saw this sitting there, or how did that whole thing come about?
No, it's a photo taken by a friend of mine, Lorena Lohr, who's like an amazing, she's doing more like painting now, but she's an amazing photographer. And I mean, coming up with the cover is always tough. We all got to agree on it. We all got to, and like, it's important. I mean, you're a record lover, it's important. You see the record cover, it like has such a big impact on the record. Yeah. And like the whole thing as a package. I'm a vinyl guy. I don't know if you can see my vinyl.
Oh, there it is.
So I'm a vinyl guy. I used to be a DJ on FMU where I played vinyl, and they're big into vinyl. And so, it's in my blood. And I always just think about the record as this complete package. For this one, I had this like image of like a blue sky bleeding into the top, which is what it is. But I wanted it to be more of like an urban photo, and I had it in my head, and I was like, are we going to take it ourselves? What are we going to do? And then I messaged Lorena, and was like telling her what I wanted. And she was like, I'm super busy. I'm doing this and that. I can do it. Might not be able to do it right away. Look at my photos though. And so I just like went through her photos and like saw it. And I was like, this
There
isn't
it is.
exactly the urban thing I wanted, but like I feel like high anxiety, like barbed wire. And I think she took the photo in like Texas or something like that. But and then originally, actually, the original photo on the bus, it said Casino Special, which was actually kind of badass. But like, it was like we'd have to rename the album Casino Special or like edit that out. And so we left it blank. And I don't know. I think it's perfect, and just like it fits. Like we're always looking at covers as like it's like a 12-inch vinyl is like it's like a I don't know. It's like so great for
it's a piece of art.
Ever.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so we like fit it perfectly.
Yeah, the theme of photos has always been like what we always chase after, and then coming from that hardcore punk scene, emo scene, like I've always been drawn to those kinds of covers as well. So I always love like a good photograph, to kind of just tell a story, or just you look at it and you're just like, I want to listen to this because this cover is very strange. On Chilling Effect, we've been asked so many times like, what that is. So, and I'm like, you're looking at it. That's great. You should listen to it.
Yeah, that's why I didn't ask. I wanted to know about the bus. But I do have to ask Sean one more question because you brought it up. The emo screamo stuff. Give me one album. Give me one record that you would say that's your emo screamo record that you go to.
Full Collapse Thursday.
I'm seeing them actually. I don't want to admit this out loud, but I'm going to the Warped Tour this weekend as a favorite of my buddy. And Thursday is playing. So I get to see Thursday. I get to see Better Lovers. I get to see Less Than Jake. And then I get to see a whole bunch of shit. But I get to see Thursday. So I'm very excited to get to
I loved them back in the day. I got rid of a lot of my emo CDs, but I still got the Thursday Full Collapse.
Excellent. Yeah, I'll be screaming for certain songs. And then trying to get my friend out of there when Machine Gun Kelly starts to play. So we'll see how that all works out. So yeah, exactly. He owes me lots. So anyway, thanks guys. This is amazing. River Cult, High Anxiety came out November 7th. Go get it. Go check it out. Limited run of vinyl for the new record. You guys are going to really dig it, and come back and talk to us again if you guys don't mind. Love this.
Thank you
so
great. Much, Rich.
Thank you.
Thanks.